it's not in your way. I don't even know if this is cutting off my hat. I feel like I'm sitting in the wrong spot, but I mean, here. Oh, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're watching from. Judy Haddad here, and this is Hit by a Truck, my journey through trauma. The sun is weltering my eyes. So I am the owner of Orange Purple Passions, which is my healing LLC, and the founder and executive director of 5 Purple Oranges, which is my charity founded in memory of my son, who I lost when we were hit by a truck. So I'm gonna make this one really brief. The more I dig into this, like the more questions I have from friends and family, and the more I dig into the story, I have to just do a little bit at a time, because I find that the anger just wells up and it's just overwhelming for me to deal with. But I'm still kind of working on my faith journey, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the criminal case, because to me, so just this last Friday, I was up in Dodge County, Wisconsin, and I met with the victim witness coordinator who was assigned to our case. And we were talking, and she was like, "Oh, you look good. It sounds like you're doing good things with your life." And I said, "Yeah, I feel now." So it's now 2018, almost 2019, and I feel now that I'm getting my act together, like I'm where I need to be, and I'm working on my purpose. And I said, I was in limbo for so long. And she said, "You really were. You really were." And people think that when the case concludes that it's over and you can move on, but you really can't, because it's not really over, because you still have this humongous loss to deal with. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. So 2015 and 2016. So 2015, that was a year where I was still trying to figure out how to be a human again. Especially the first year. So from August to August, you do have a lot of people who are surrounding you, there to lift you up, to sort of take care of you. And I didn't know yet what I was supposed to be doing, how I was going to find my footing, and I just couldn't do much but concentrate on the criminal case. So last I talked about that, we had a meeting in July, where I believe I mentioned that the DA declined to even let me know if he wanted to move forward with the case. On the table, I remember this clear as day, on the table was the criminal complaint. The 2 investigators that were in the room were willing to tell us whatever the DA was willing to let them tell us. What they told us was not much of anything. My lawyer and my mom and I, after the meeting, had this conversation, and we all sort of knew that there was something that we could tell, that we would know, but we just couldn't know it yet. That they knew, that the cops knew what really happened. We were pretty sure of that at this point, that they knew what had happened. They knew why. We just didn't know why. So it kept us still in this place of just grieving, hoping, pushing for prosecution. So in my last chapter, I think I mentioned that I walked away very angry. I was like, my mom and I are of 2 different minds, but I was really pissed off with the DA, because I honestly felt I could be so wrong. I honestly felt that what I was seeing was an expression of a man who just wanted to placate me until he could either drop the bad news or, well, drop the bad news. That was sort of what I walked away with. That he was, I think honestly, so I have so many friends who say, well, I can't imagine. And honestly, you really can't. You can imagine, but until you lose a child, you just don't know. And I think that people with children, and I happen to know the DA, I think he's got 2 kids, but he knew he had a little kid, a grown child, and then another young child. And I think that was that sort of, he was trying to be empathetic, like, oh, if this happened to me, I get it, you have this loss, but I don't know. I don't know that you understand the loss unless you have seen the loss or gone through the loss. And I was pretty sure he did not know much about my case. I was pretty sure just by what he was saying, and I just got a real strong sense that this was going to go nowhere, and he had no interest in prosecuting. I had in the back of my mind, as I mentioned before, his attorney was the attorney for the trucking company's insurance agency. I believed strongly that was a conflict of interest, and I always had in the back of my mind, if he doesn't go forward with prosecution, I'm going to out this. I'm going to put it in the papers. This is what's going on. This is why he's not prosecuting my case, and demand a new prosecution or something, an investigation. I now have proof that he and his and that attorney did talk about whether or not it was a conflict of interest, and they decided it wasn't. So, but again, he ended up only focusing on the man who killed my child and not the trucking company, and I still haven't found the strength and drive to go after them yet. And I don't know why, because they deserve so much. They deserve like a whole pound of crack landing on them, but I just can't do it yet. So it was July. In August, my mom and I went to a couple, like, so the entire 2015, there were like, I don't know, 4, I think, dead child ceremonies, as I called them, that I would go up there with either both my parents or my mom, because I didn't know what was, I mean, it was all new to me, obviously, losing Alon, and I just didn't know what would provide me with some solace and what, I don't know. So one of the events we went to was in August, and it was in at the governor's mansion in Madison, Wisconsin, and I had a good chuckle about that. And I knew by then that the governor and the DA had a fairly, I don't want to say close relationship and friends, but politically close. They had a lot of connections. And I thought, well, gosh, if there's anybody who can get this guy to charge, it's Mr. Governor Walker. So I had it in my head, I'm not gonna walk away from this meeting. Like, there's a reason I'm meeting him. This was for, it was an organ donation ceremony, and it was rather lovely, actually. But I'm not a fan of Scott Walker, never have been on any level. But in my head, I was like, I'm not gonna let this chance go. This is important. You need to grab this by the horns and take advantage of the situation. So I walked up to him. It was they were doing photo ops, and I walked up and I hugged him, which anybody who knows me knows what that takes for me to do. I hugged him and I said, "This is my boy." I showed him the picture. I said, "This is my child. Get your Dodge County DA." I think that's what I said. I said, "Get your guy in Dodge County. Get the DA to prosecute. Tell your DA to prosecute. Tell your DA to prosecute his killer. Get your DA to prosecute my son's killer." I don't know like how many times I said it, but I looked at his face and there was like nothing there. There was no recognition of what I was saying. This is my child, this beautiful child, and the best thing is he was so, side note, I did go, I graduated high school in Atlanta, Georgia, and I did go to undergrad at University of Wisconsin in Madison for a variety of reasons, and I loved it. Still hate the color red, but loved going there. My son at the time, in the picture that I brought, because his favorite color was orange, was wearing an orange Illini shirt. So here we are, we're from Illinois. Sadly, Alon was killed in Wisconsin. One of the last places he visited was Madison. It's just all so weird, but he's wearing this Illinois shirt that my older brother, who did go to Illinois, University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, gave me that shirt when I was in high school, and my 9-year-old was wearing this shirt, and it was just such a random thing. And I'm holding up this beautiful boy in his orange shirt, and I'm trying to get through to the governor, like, you need to do something. This is my son. You need to prosecute his killer. And I just don't think he sort of was taking note of what I was saying, but I felt like, okay, but you did what you were supposed to do. Like, that's what you were supposed to do. That was your time with him, and you did what you were supposed to do. I sort of left my mom with his wife while I was doing this. That poor woman, I think they had her on tranquilizers. I have never seen anybody look less alive in my life. So that was August of 2015. I found out later that same day, the DA was having a meeting about our case with the investigators. So I think there was some sort of like interesting sort of synchronicity there. By the end of the year, all I could think about are the trips that my mom and I wanted to plan for 2016 and wanting to have an answer. I watch enough Dateline to know that cases and investigations take time. I totally get that. But I also knew by then, and also given that the crash team, I've said it 5 million times, at that time was four people. At that time was 4 people, none of whom worked crash and still don't full time. So understanding that they had a high year of fatalities. I'm not sure how many of those were investigated as homicides. Now I'd have to look, but I understood 4 people. They're not doing this full time. They've got all these fatalities. God knows what kind of overtime they're putting into the case. But by now it's over a year. It's not as if they don't know who did the crime, or, a sort of an investigation where you don't even know who did the crime. It was simply, can we prove it? Do we have enough to provide a burden of proof in a criminal court, as opposed to civil, where it's less of I think the burden's on the other foot in a way. So I was sort of obsessed with it. And anytime I got news, I was like a little obsessed, nagging both the DA's office and to the point where I didn't want to be like, screw this girl, I'm not doing anything. But it was just like, what's going on? What can you tell us? Blah, blah, blah. So I would bother the sheriff's office and bother the DA's office. And it was getting to the point where I understood that we might be coming to a resolution. I didn't know what that was going to be, but I knew in my head that if it wasn't what I wanted, I would fight. So 2016 comes, and this is again, I'm in this limbo where this is all I can think about. So because I now have this feeling of not being able to move forward until I see this case come to fruition, there's also had the ending of the civil case to deal with. My mom and I were sort of feeling exhausted from taking care of my dad, feeling exhausted from our grief. So it was sort of the time where I did a lot of travel. So I believe, and I didn't fully write this in my notes, but we went to like Florida in February, I went to Idaho in February, took my mom to Utah in like April, I went to Salt Lake City in June. Like, I just felt like this was my, you know what, I'm gonna do this because I can, and a lot of it I was able to, it was considered work travel. So I felt like, okay, I'm trying on this job. So I touched on this briefly before, that I wanted to see if network marketing was gonna be for me. I was really loving using Young Living essential oils, and I sort of understood the business model. I understand it more now. And I just thought, okay, well, I can combine like personal travel with business travel and see what happens. And every time we would go away, I would check in with the sheriff's office. All right, what's going on? Should we hang around? Are we gonna have a meeting with the DA? What's gonna happen? And I pretty much, either alone or with my mom, traveled all year. So, you know, went to Salt Lake City, we took a cruise that fall. And for me, it was a time because I still didn't have a clear purpose, I still hadn't found my faith, it was a time for me to create my community. And I truly did. And I didn't have that intention, but it sort of happened. So I found that I was going to these places to hang out with these people that I guess were sort of filling that void of not having a lawn. But often I found myself being surrounded by people and feeling more alone than I ever had. And I felt that way, the cruise especially, because no one knows now. Coming into this cruise, no one knows my story. I don't really have a career. Like when people ask me, what do you do? That kind of stuff. I didn't really have anything to answer. I'm with my mom. We're sort of dragging that sadness with us. And then also like, well, we're still trying to enjoy life, but there's like this whole, Alon should be here to see this, but Alon wouldn't have been here to see this because we wouldn't have done this with Alon, and it just feels empty without him, and yet, no, but we can still have fun. It was this whole sort of weird feeling, this just to sort of, it was unusual for me, obviously, and this loss that I just is always there, this like hidden scar, and sometimes you just wish people knew it was there, not for pity or empathy, just like so people can recognize that when I go from like a full-on like belly laugh to sort of this wistful faraway look, it's because like there's that piece of me missing. The one good news about 2016, and I touched on this briefly before, is that in April, we did conclude the civil case with Marco, Alon's father. I had to look back and see if I actually did talk about it, but the morning we did that, I felt a sense of relief that it was over. I felt annoyed that I found out afterwards that I could have held out. I could have held out really for what I truly was willing to part with financially. I felt annoyed at the mediator trying to tell me it was all okay after this man had made my life a living hell. I felt annoyed at myself because I think the only reason I didn't want to take it to court, which I wish I now had, because I think my lawyer was thinking, well, if you go to court, these are the possibilities. You might not get what you think because it depends on if the jury knows the amount of money involved or if they just know percentages. And I understood that, but I knew I could show Marco's true colors in court. And honestly, the only reason I really wanted it wrapped up is so I could go to Salt Lake City in June. And part of me is really glad I did. I ended up going to the bed and breakfast that April to stay. I think I stayed 1 or 2 nights at the place that Alana and I had intended on staying the day he was killed. And that was surreal, but I was able to be at the scene of the crime and just look at it in the sunlight and take away, I guess, the boogeyman that's there. But so while I was staying there in April, I booked my plane tickets for Salt Lake City, and I felt really good about that. So it was Young Living's convention. What I liked is that I was included on all these different sort of events and parties with people that I didn't know and then got to know and became really important parts of my life. And so I think I was meant to be there. I was meant to go. I felt the whole thing was kind of stupid also, but there were things that were interesting to me. So I think it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, try this on, try this. This is gonna be your career for a little bit and you'll figure the rest out later. But I know now, like looking back, and even just a couple months later looking back, what I found the most valuable for me to do while I was there is to just spend time talking to people. Like I just wanted to hang out with people and talk to people and just like, I didn't want to sit in on the classes and sit in on the convention. I just wanted to hang out with my friends, old and new, and just like be around that energy and learn from new people. So one of the things that happened there, and I'm going to conclude now and wait for next week, is that I met the 2 ULA guys, and I knew they had written this book and they had done these oils and it was all about goal setting. And I had said to one of them, I can't seem to sort of get past this, whatever this is. I think I'm looking for faith. This is what happened. And he's like, oh, I know what you need to do. Come to our event in Minneapolis in September. And I did. I booked my ticket. And I'm going to hold off on the rest of that story for next time. Thanks for watching.